Bill Rosenweig, partner at BBH. Welcome to FundForum International.
Thank you.
You're hosting a panel entitled Driving Asia Growth, Greater China Cross-Border Distribution Opportunities today. You're based in Hong Kong. Can you summarise the primary growth opportunities for cross-border fund managers in China?
Sure. Well, I would say there are some macro trends at work in China, Greater China, which we define as mainland China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan, really driven by the increase in wealth, just kind of wealth creation in that part of the world, coupled with regulatory change, principally around the opening up of China's capital markets and the liberalization of the renminbi, which is the Chinese currency. There are a lot of different fund structures that are used for accessing Greater China. It's a very large market, though. Currently, we estimate about $900 billion US in assets, and there's good growth potential, expecting it to be maybe $2 trillion over the next 5 years. Some of the key areas of growth have been very important to this event in Europe. UCITS distribution into Asia, in particular Taiwan, has been a very bright spot, represents maybe $100 billion US in assets currently, and is growing quite rapidly. But the big prize, of course, is China as it opens up and global managers are able to access the mainland China market.
Indeed, what can these fund managers do to, the cross-border fund managers do to position themselves well in this market? Yeah,
it's a great question because it's a very fluid market. I think that UCITS has been a very effective platform for people to gain access to distribution into Greater China. So I think one thing that global managers or cross-border managers can do is really work on their distribution infrastructure in Asia for UCITS, so really leverage the platform they have today. And so having a good transfer agency function in Asia that is in the local time zone, knows the local regulations, customs, language, etc., but also distribution analytics and automations, really building out a robust infrastructure for UCITS that then maybe can be used as other fund domiciles emerge as other cross-border vehicles. I think managers also really need to work on establishing their distribution channels through primarily through the banks. Most of it is intermediated wholesale distribution, but there are emerging platforms that they should be interested in as well. But I think it's really important that they keep an eye on the regulatory changes. Right now, UCITS is a very effective platform, but there are regulatory changes that, depending on which way the wind blows, could impact that. And so global managers need to look at the different vehicles that are emerging to make sure that they can execute their distribution strategy.
And local knowledge like yours is very valuable. You talk there about talking the right language, literally.
Yeah, well, I think even for UCITS, it's a global product being distributed into Asia, and you really need to build a bridge between the European regulations and product and the local market expectations, practices, distribution practices, and regulations in these local markets.
How will the Hong Kong-China Mutual Recognition Initiative impact the distribution landscape, if you like, in Greater China?
It's a great question. Going back maybe 18 months when that initiative was first announced, we were thinking it would be a fundamental change because up until now, no cross-border funds can be directly sold into China, and mutual recognition with Hong Kong we thought would be an exclusive arrangement, and a lot of fund managers became very interested in Hong Kong domiciled funds as a platform to gain access to China. Although in recent months, and in fact just last week, the CSRC, which is the Chinese regulator, suggested that they would open up to other domiciles after Hong Kong. What they didn't mention is at what point in time. So it's a big question for the industry now. Will Hong Kong domiciled funds be a short window of opportunity or a sustainable advantage? And usually when there's that lack of clarity, inertia tends to rule the day.
You really need a finger on the pulse. It's an evolving landscape, if you like.
It's an evolving landscape, and I think that the bottom line is China is opening up. That's a policy objective, both for its capital markets, but also the currency liberalization, and it will be a big market for the global cross-border industry. The question is whether it's UCITS funds or Hong Kong funds. So really staying in tune with the regulations and having partners who really are in tune is very important. So in terms of the impact on UCITS, near term, I think that it's not an enormous impact, but people need to keep an eye on it. And I think it will be evolutionary over time. And some of the facets of evolution are, it's slow, there are mutations along the way, but ultimately those mutations lead to an adapted product that can really be successful.
What are you hoping to impart here, if you like, at the conference and take away from it too?
Yeah, well, I think that one of the things that I'm hoping to really bring to the table is making sure that this conference, which has a very European feel to it, is staying in tune with what's going on in Asia. And so part of it's educational, but part of it is getting opinions of other cross-border managers to really understand how the business should evolve in Greater China. And
it's a great opportunity. There are something like 40 countries represented here, so
yeah,
it is that opportunity for you too.
It really is a great opportunity, and when you look at it again at a macro level, China is on the verge of becoming the largest economy in the world. It's opening up, so I think every organization needs to have a China strategy for how they're going to gain access to that market, and there are different ways to do it. But I think educating oneself is really what it all comes down to. So I'm hopeful that I can help with that this week.
Rosenweig, thank you so much for joining us here at FundForum.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.